Welcome to an hour of HealthMade Radio. HealthMade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. A core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. HealthMade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Rena Greenberg. Rena Greenberg is CEO of Wellness Seminars and Slender Cider, as well as an author, speaker, weight loss, health, and rapid personal change hypnosis expert. Rena Greenberg has been helping people make positive life changes for a very long time. Since 1990, wellness seminars have been offered to the public and to employees of over 75 Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Michigan hospitals, and privately to employees of over 100 major corporations and city governments. More than 100,000 people have used Rena's smoking cessation and weight control programs to achieve their goals and transform their lives. She's been featured in over 70 television news stories and more than 100 newspaper and magazine success stories, including in USA Today, Women's World Magazine, ABC TV Nightline, and on Fox TV, CBS TV, and NBC TV News. Rena is the author of The Right Weight, 6 Steps to Permanent Weight Loss, used by over 100,000 people, and The Craving Cure, Break the Hold Carbs and Sweets Have Over Your Life. This year, she released her newest book, Easy Sugar Breakup, Break the Habits and Addictions That Control You. Rena, such a pleasure to have you on the show today, and it's such an important subject that we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. It's wonderful to be here.
So, in your book, I mean, one of the issues is that so many people were dealing with addictions, and we may not even recognize that we have addiction. So, what is it? An addiction? What is that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So an addiction, sometimes it's difficult. You're right. People don't realize it because sometimes we don't know. It's addiction, just a habit, or just something I enjoy, and think, people think, well, what's the problem? It's just the one thing I enjoy, whether it's food, cigarettes, alcohol. And really, there might be some, various opinions on what addiction is, but really for most people, it's a compulsion. To continue to go forward. And it's not, the interesting thing about addiction, it's not always the exact same substance. Sometimes it's like a category of substance. So especially when it's food that you're addicted to, for some people it could be bread, or, for some people it's overtly sugar, like the cakes, the cookies, the candy. But for other people, it's more just the pasta or, food in general. And it can be a big problem for people, especially when they haven't yet come to the realization that it is an addiction, it's a compulsion.
So because you're talking about different foods, and so you're saying that people then can actually be addicted to like pasta or addicted to sugar. So you would classify that as an addiction, like a smoking addiction or alcohol or even drug addiction?
I would, because when it's processed food, remember, these foods are created by an industry, and the goal is to keep people addicted, to keep people coming back for more. And it's both physically addicted and emotionally addicted. So there are, when you think about actually, again, processed foods as a category, it could even be actually like packages of dinner. It could just be packages, a dinner in a frozen section or a box. And if you read the ingredients, there are, sweeteners, sugars, artificial sweeteners, and what happens is, and other chemicals. And these chemicals actually keep us addicted, meaning that we crave more, we want more. And many times people feel very badly about themselves. People come to me for weight loss and beating themselves up. And often they really don't realize that there's a huge physical component going on here. And that's how these foods were created in a laboratory. They're not natural foods. They're actually created in a laboratory with the goal being that people are going to keep buying more.
So you're actually saying that it's actually a scientific, it's like a company that has a research department where they're trying to figure out how can we make people buy more of this food, and they manipulate and put in chemicals in there to really trigger addiction within the individual.
100%. 100%. It's exactly like that. And not only physical, what's really scary is there's also that, as I said, the emotional component. So think about how it's not anymore just the food industry. It's, of course, the advertising industry, but also it's deep into our society where it just becomes normal because the thought now, society's picked up the thought. So what I mean, for example, is certain foods like pizza, like ice cream, emotionally they connect with friendship, love, camaraderie. Or if you're sad, ice cream's going to make me feel better. And so there are all those emotional attachments that sort of are layered on that we learn as we, acclimate into society. And different cultures have different foods. But it's this idea that I'm not eating to live. I'm just eating as an activity, a pastime, or to soothe my emotion. So, and, we know the result of that.
So the eating then, and not only then, obviously we need to eat to nourish ourselves and to have energy to go about our daily activities, but it's become an emotional event, eating. And if we would then alter the eating habits of an individual and let go then of these different foods that have these emotional connections, it is almost like they would then lose these emotions, and they feel that great emotional loss. Well, now I can't celebrate anymore, or now I can't soothe myself anymore, or I'm disconnected from this memory when we all get together and we ate pizza. Is that what you've seen with all your clients?
Well, actually, that's why the method I've been using, you mentioned that I've been doing this work since 1990, really helping people to break habits, addictions, and, of course, lose weight, because weight gain is, unfortunately, obviously one of the symptoms of having food addiction for many people. So with the tool that I use is hypnosis, and I teach people self-hypnosis, and you mentioned in my new book, Easy Sugar Breakup. I mean, there's a lot of tools that I give people to avoid that very thing that you're saying, that they feel all of a sudden lost, empty without this food, because there are those emotional attachments. So the tools are designed to help break those emotional attachments to those foods, to actually look at them differently, as if you're literally, hence the name of the book, Easy Sugar Breakup. I mean, as if you actually just break up with those foods, you don't want them anymore, and then it symbolizes freedom. And everyone around you can be eating certain foods. And I'm not saying you have to eliminate all foods. Obviously, each person has to just discover what their own triggers are. And, literally one man's meat is another man's poison. So each person has to find, and I go through that sort of in the book, like how do you find exactly what the triggers are for you so that you never feel deprived or denied. You can still eat foods that taste delicious, that you enjoy, but you're no longer emotionally attached to food. Your food is your fuel, your nourishment, your sustenance, and yet you enjoy every bite. And that's my goal, to help people get to that place of really freedom. And then I feel like weight loss is the side benefit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the obesity crisis that we're having, it tied to so many different health issues. You have cancer actually being one of them, but cardiovascular. You also have joint issues. You have diabetes. You have pretty much the major killers are associated with obesity and overweight. And with that, then people are just frantic about needing to lose weight because they know health-wise it is better to weigh less. So, I mean, why do they fail? I mean, because they all try to eat better and they get on the newest diet and they lose some pounds and then they get off the diet and then they're right back where they started? Why do people fail?
That's such a great question. And really the quick answer is because subconsciously, remember, we're controlled by our subconscious. So consciously, you're right. People will decide over and over, that's it. I can't stand the way I look. I hate the way I feel. I'm going on a diet. I'm going to lose this weight. And usually they start off having some success. It almost doesn't even matter which diet they're on. Raw, vegan, keto, could be anything. And Weight Watchers, and they start losing some weight. And then, next week goes by, they lose a few more pounds. But sooner or later, something happens, could be good stress, bad stress, that willpower snaps, and they go racing towards the source of pleasure. Because subconsciously, the minute you go on a diet, you're waiting to go off it, because dieting is psychologically a temporary situation. And we're always moving towards pleasure. We're always moving away from pain. So if we keep those harmful foods in the category of pleasure, then when we're under stress, we're going to end up going back to those foods. And so with the tools, the hypnosis, the NLP, the self-hypnosis that, I'm teaching people in the Easy Sugar Breakup, the idea is that you change the way you think about your food subconsciously so that those foods, you just don't want them anymore. And it really is incredible. I mean, it's happened, of course, for me. That's how I got into this myself. And I literally used to eat 2 or 3 servings of ice cream a day. I was so addicted to it. And now I've gone decades without any. And I have no desire for it. So I really know firsthand that you can change your taste, your desires for certain foods. And, of course, I've worked with thousands of people, and I'm seeing the same thing, that there's really strategies you can use to change your thinking subconsciously so that you don't have that feeling of loss and that you are able to stick with that sensible eating plan without ever feeling like you're on a diet. So I tell my clients that just throw that diet out the window. You don't ever need to use that word again, because you're not on a diet. You're just changing, updating your lifestyle, your eating habits to reflect health, mental, physical, and emotional health.
Love it. We're going to take
and you're actually... Sorry?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and people, the fear is, oh, my God, I'm going to be miserable, because so often when you're on a diet, you are miserable. But the great news is when you get off the diet and you just start eating to live and eating healthy foods, but delicious whole foods, not, junk processed foods, you can start to enjoy food more and more. And that's what my clients actually say. They say, God, I'm eating more, I'm enjoying food more, and the weight's coming off, because when you're no longer eating those foods that are full of chemicals, it's incredible how your body and your mind can shift.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. I'm here with Rena Greenberg, and we're talking about how you can get off your addiction. Yeah, how you can stop your addiction, be it sugar, be it smoking, be it carbs, whatever it is. And when we come right back, I want to just chat with Rena and see what it is that put you on this path. We'll be right back. You're listening to Health Made Radio. Welcome back to Health Made Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I am here with Rena Greenberg. She is the author of Easy Sugar Breakup, Break the Habits and Addictions That Control You. So, Rena, what drove you to be so passionate about helping people to get off the addictions, get off of the sugars? Why did you start this process?
Well, my story is similar to so many others. I was living my life. I was actually in New York City at the time. I was young. Had a very, very fast-paced lifestyle. I was working in entertainment. I was working in travel, fashion. So my life really revolved around just my social life and having fun and the work that I was doing in New York. And all of a sudden, I was in my mid-20s, and I lost all my energy. I just got sick. And now I had been overseas the year before, because as I said, I had worked in travel. So, but no one knew. I didn't know if I had caught something, what had happened. And I started a path like so many others who fall ill, especially when it's nothing that can be diagnosed easily. And I spent a year pounding the pavement in New York City, going from doctor to doctor. And at the end of the year, I actually walked into the emergency room at Brooklyn's Methodist Hospital expecting to be dismissed because for a year, nobody found anything, really physically wrong. And it turned out that they whisked me in. They told me they had to admit me, that my heart rate was only down to 30 beats per minute, of course, irregular, and that, I needed to be admitted right away. And I remember protesting, saying, wait a minute, I've got things to do. I got to work. I can't. And I remember the doctor, this lovely Swedish doctor, just came right up to me and he said, the only thing keeping you alive now is your age. And at that time, I was 26 years old. So I got admitted into the hospital, and I was in cardiac care for 3 weeks. While I was in the hospital, I actually had a heart attack, and they ended up putting a pacemaker into my heart. And the chief of cardiology looked at me. He said to me, you have the heart of an 80-year-old. They put the pacemaker in, and, again, after that 3-week stay, I was released from the hospital. And I remember, stepping outside, in Brooklyn, Park Slope, looking up at the sky and feeling like I've been given a second chance. And I was so grateful. And interestingly, this was a while back, the doctors, of course, when I was in the hospital, were interviewing me, and they said, what could have caused this? And I said, well, my lifestyle isn't great. I drank, and I didn't think I had a healthy lifestyle. And the doctors said to me, this has nothing to do with lifestyle. This obviously could only be genetic. And that was it. But when I left the hospital and stood on that street in Brooklyn and looked up at the sky, I knew it was like that, just that intuitive knowing that there were things that I could control, that this was a wake-up call, that I had to change my life, that it wasn't even optional anymore. And I was determined to. And I looked hard at my life, and I saw many addictions. As I said, alcohol, food for sure. Just, the New York lifestyle, there was just a lot going on. And I was determined. So I just basically eliminated my addictions. And when I look back to see how I had done that, that's how I ended up creating the system that I then started doing a program for hospitals. I created a wellness seminars program and started to do it, first one hospital, then another, ended up doing my program for 75 hospitals, again, over 100,000 people. But that's what my system was based on. It was, how did I release all those addictions? Because I'm also a very highly addictive person. And it's been so gratifying to, of course, not only just restore my own health, but to help so many other people to do the same.
And that's, because we were talking earlier, we were talking about the emotional connection to food. And in your case, then you were able, because you ended up in such a dire situation, and it actually ended up to a place where you recognized that your life was on the line. And so you had then the ability to connect then your outcome with the food, meaning that you ate this and Correct. I almost died. So the key, from what I'm understanding when I'm reading when I read your book, is the importance of the emotional connection to food and how to shift that. So for people that don't have the same kind of a strong emotional impact from the food, so you had a negative impact for these comfort foods. What can they do so that they can change their emotional response to food before even ending up in the place that you ended up in?
Yeah, great question. So the first step really is awareness. And you really hit the nail on the head when you said connect the outcome with the food. You see, most times what happens is when you think about a food, especially food that you're conditioned to feel like you love this food. You always hear people say, oh, I love whatever. I love ice cream. I love pizza. I love chocolate chip cookies. So you have this idea in your head that you love this food. So it is really like a love affair. So when you think about eating this food, like let's say it's ice cream, So you think about eating ice cream, and what happens? You kind of light up, you're excited, you think about the taste of it and how the comfort, how good it's going to make you feel. So that then naturally you send those signals to your brain, or those signals are being sent because these pictures are in your subconscious. There's a mental movie that begins at that point. And you have the idea, the mental movie begins, all those pleasurable associations, and oftentimes that movie, which is below your awareness, is in full color. There might even be a soundtrack behind it. Like, it's exciting. You can't wait to get to whatever that substance is. And you could replace it with anything. It could be a margarita, cigarette. So this movie's playing. And then you follow through, and your behavior, of course, is completely controlled by this image in your mind. And then you go and you eat the ice cream, or you drink the margarita. So what happens next? Well, you might say, oh, I feel great. Like, wow, I really enjoyed that. That was so delicious. Oh, I just needed that drink. It was so good. So you have that moment of pleasure. But what I say is fast forward in time. Where's that moment where you think to yourself, oh, my God, I feel disgusting? That moment where you think, I have to go on a diet, or I have to quit drinking. I have got to stop this. Or that moment when you look in the mirror and you just can't even believe that that's you anymore. Or that moment you're trying to get dressed and all your clothes are tight, nothing fits, and you do not want to go and buy the next size clothing. So it's that moment of either physical pain or emotional pain, just that humiliation, that embarrassment, that shame that so many people can relate to, no matter what the addiction is, because ultimately there is pain involved. But what the problem is there's a disconnect between the pain and the food. So then you're feeling this pain, either emotional or physical pain, and what do? You want to comfort yourself, and there goes that movie again because it's a habit. The subconscious part of the mind it just repeats itself over and over. So now you've got this habitual thought, this habitual movie that you're going to reach for this substance because it's going to make me happy. So the way to break that cycle is to change our association with the food. And how do we do that? It's actually very simple. When you get to that moment of pain, whatever it is, physical, emotional pain that I've just described, several scenarios, whatever it is, you look in the mirror, your clothes are too tight, someone says something to you like, oh, you've gained weight, or whatever it is, that moment. And then you want to link the pain of that moment to the food. And there are ways to do that you actually link it to the food, and so that the next time you look at the food, you can actually break the cycle because that food no longer symbolizes pleasure to you. It's like you actually start to run a new mental movie. And the movie is actually a joyful movie because you start to see yourself as the hero or the heroine, and you are pushing that food away from you, and you are thinking not like, oh, poor me, I really want to eat that, but I can't. No, instead you're thinking that food is disgusting, I don't want it, I'm free, and instead you're able to really tune into what your body is actually needing. And of course, there are tools to help you to do that as well.
That's amazing. We're going to take another quick break. You're here listening to Health Made Radio. I'm here with Rena Greenberg, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Rena Greenberg. She's the author of Easy Sugar Breakup, Break the Habits and Addictions That Control You. So one of the issues, so what you were saying prior to, is that when people go on a diet, like you're saying, it's just it's a very temporary component. It's not something that is a lifestyle change. You just do something to achieve a goal, and once you achieve the goal, you think that it's going to maintain that way, but you go back on to the old habits that cost you to be overweight, or that cost you to be inflamed, or that cost you to have elevated blood sugar or cardiovascular issues, or whatever it may be that this diet is causing, because you always want to move towards pleasure and away from pain. So with these techniques that you're talking about, you then will have an ability then to disconnect from the pleasure of this food, this unhealthy food, and then create new happy memories and joyful memories with food that serves you health-wise. Am I correct with that?
Exactly, yes. And you see, it's actually quite easy to do, because if you think about it, once you start, I mean, think about even anyone you've talked to who's just lost, even 10, 20 pounds. They feel so good. They feel so proud of themselves. It's that really exciting feeling. And so that's what we want to remember. Like every time we say no to a disgusting, harmful, processed fast food or junk food, instead of feeling deprived, we can start to feel really empowered. Like, wow, look at me. I'm able to say no to that food, even though everyone in the room is eating it. So you sort of develop a psychological chip on your shoulder, which is a complete reframe from how people usually see it, which is, oh my God, I'm on a diet. Everybody else gets to eat this food. Poor me. And maybe today I'll just go off the diet and go back at it again, tomorrow. But we can completely turn that mindset around so that the less we eat, the better we feel. And the more we choose the foods that nourish and sustain us, the happier we are. And we start to ask ourselves questions like, how will this food make me feel? Not just in 5 minutes, but in, let's say, 5 hours or in 5 days. And knowing that, the food industry will tell us, oh, one little cookie won't hurt you. True, but if you're an addict, and some of us are, if we have these addictive compulsive tendencies, which I would say, probably at least 50% of the population does, then instead of feeling, feeling bad about it, instead we can take that into account and realize, yeah, one little cookie won't hurt me, but if I eat this one little cookie, I'm going to want more. And so I don't want that cookie. I can't have it. I don't want it. And that's when we start to feel that sense of empowerment and freedom.
And what's interesting with sugar is that we have all these different, it's almost like an opioid. It's like a drug in itself when we're eating the sugar, and it just fires all these addictive receptor sites up in the brain. And when we eat it, the more of these receptor sites we have, which makes us crave that food even more. And when we don't eat it, then these receptor sites start to break down. But as soon as we eat it again, then they start to flare up again. So that's why it's so crucial then, obviously, to not think that you can just take a cookie and then you'll be okay. It's like an alcoholic that says to themselves, well, I'll just have one drink. This time I'll be able to control myself. But that just kind of opens up the floodgate.
Exactly, and I'm so glad you kind of broke that down in terms of those addictive receptor cells in the brain, because when we start to realize that it's a physical thing, and yes, of course, we're talking about hypnosis, self-hypnosis, mindfulness. I mean, obviously, we need to get in touch with the emotional aspect, but we cannot underestimate the physical part of it. So it's not about, oh, I'm weak, or I just got to keep mustering up more willpower. It's really realizing that every time we eat a substance that we're addicted to that's harmful, we set ourselves back. It'd be like running a race and then continually having to go back to the starting line. And I think once we realize that, it makes it so much easier to say, I'm never going back. And again, comparing it with, again, the title, the easy sugar breakup. So I like to compare it to actually having a breakup. Because it depends, of course, on the situation with the breakup, but oftentimes you just need to take space from that other person. And this, we'll just go out like once a week as friends, oftentimes doesn't work for a period of time. Because every time you introduce that person back into your kind of in your energy field, you really can't move forward yet. And so it's so helpful to realize that you're actually doing yourself a disservice every time you dip your toe back in. And that you can start to feel stronger and stronger each time you move further away from that substance that's really just weakening you and sucking up your life force energy, which can be used in so many, better ways.
And some of the issues that a lot of people have is that, they have all these events. I got birthday, I got this wedding, I got this. Then they socially they're exposed to all these different foods. I mean, what are some of the tips that you would have for them to be able to get through these kind of events where, the whole social environment is to eat, and this is how they connect, and to not feel like an outcast because I'm eating healthy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that it's interesting when my clients come to me. I mean, that's such a common theme, and I've had recently actually a few women come to me who have really high-powered jobs, and they have expense accounts, and they're wining and dining with their clients and traveling. And that was an issue, that they brought up. And I really assured them, I said, you would be surprised, because, of course, I've been doing this, for decades, eating really, really healthy and very mindful of the foods I put into my body. I said, you would be surprised that people really don't care what you're eating. What they care about is that you care about them, that you're listening to them. And, if you need to socially put something on your plate or have a glass in your hand, that's fine. And as far as drinking, of course, I urge people the obvious. You get some bubbly water with some lemon and some lime, and nobody knows what you're drinking. And then, the thing is, when you're eating out now, it's so much easier than it was, let's say, 20 years ago. I mean, to order a healthy meal, to have foods, not fried and not greasy, and a salad dressing on the side, oil and vinegar on the side. So it's easier now than it used to be to make healthy choices. If you're getting together with friends, one thing I really love to do is potluck. Everybody brings something, and you can just bring, people love it. I get phone calls all the time, Rena, bring your salad, because my salad's so good. And it's not boring. I have a wonderful olive oil dressing that I actually have a little video of on my blog, so people can, see how I make that healthy salad dressing with flaxseed oil and organic apple cider vinegar and Flunder cider, and it's wonderful. And then I, goat cheese, I dry roast pecans, put some protein, and so it really is tasty. And so that's something that I'll bring to a potluck. If I know for myself, and again, everyone has to find the eating plan that's best for themselves. For me, I really need the protein. So I'll often just take enough protein along just for myself, knowing that I'm going to need that protein to keep my blood sugar balanced. And whatever kind of protein a person's eating, that's always helpful to have some protein before you go to an event, just so that your blood sugar can be steady in case there is no protein, at the event. So those are some things that you can do. Carry around food with you, and make sure you're not starving when you get there. Keep that blood sugar steady and balanced. And people say it just gets easier and easier to go through social situations. And one thing I always recommend is don't bring attention to yourself or your eating. People are in the habit, I'm on a diet, Well, I never find that to be helpful. People are going to rush in and either say, you look great, why are you on a diet? Or, it's your birthday. Instead, if you're really abstaining from foods, it's probably better just, if people actually ask you, just to say, I'm staying away from wheat right now, which is actually very trendy right now. Or, I don't think dairy's agreeing with me right now. So, and when you say that to somebody, they totally get it, and they're not likely to continue to pursue it.
And that's what like you were mentioning, is I see that with a lot of my patients. The key is preparation, to kind of go through the event mentally, and then make sure you don't get stuck in a situation where you have to make quick bad decisions, so that you're prepared for the event, and that you bring the correct food, or investigate to make sure that there are foods there that are supportive for your health.
Exactly. And that's, like you said, you go through the situation mentally, you make that mental movie, and you see yourself strong, confident, standing tall, and really feeling in control, and not necessarily drawn over to the food table. If you don't go there, one of the mistakes people make is, I'm amazed. People will tell me they don't eat all day long, especially if they have an event later. They're like, I'm not going to eat all day, so because I'm going to be eating at this event. That does not make sense. You want your blood sugar to be steady and balanced, so that you can, like you said, you can make really good decisions, because you've got enough glucose going to your brain.
Exactly. We need it. We're going to take a quick break. I'm here with Rena Greenberg. You're listening to Health Made Radio. Welcome back to Health Made Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Rena Greenberg, and we are talking about how to solve our food cravings and food addictions, and what they are connected to. One thing that was really fascinating in your book, as I was reading through, is we talked about emotional eating, how we eat because we want to celebrate, or eat because something went wrong and we need to soothe ourselves. But are there, in addition to that, in order to be able to be successful, then to eat well, you also need to then work on some of those inner emotions or inner feelings that may lead to food addictions. I mean, what are some of those inner feelings, and how do they play a role in our addictive personality?
Yeah, the hardest thing is that for many of us, we were never taught really how to handle our emotions. And it could be a pattern, from childhood. I mean, if you think about it, for many of us, we learned emotional eating as children because, when you were upset, let's say you were crying, scraped your knee, and a lot of kids would, run into the kitchen to find mommy or daddy or their caretaker to comfort them. And what was usually the suggestion given to them about their scraped knee would be, have a cookie, have some ice cream, have a lollipop. And, the amazing thing is it worked. The cookies and milk or the ice cream distracted us, and we went back outside playing, and everything was fine for a while. So we learned early in life that the activity of eating is going to solve our problems and make us feel better. So later in life, you ask what kind of emotion, what kind of inner states do people experience? I mean, people experience loneliness, depression, worry, anxiety, being nervous, confused, just feeling sad or insecure. So these feelings, come and go. I mean, it's part of the human condition. And then, of course, there's even all the happy feelings. There's excitement and joy and, just feeling good. And so a lot of times, even when we're feeling good, we're reaching for food. And so, again, emotional eating is a habit. And it's a habitual way of sort of managing or living with our emotions. And so what I teach people is how to create new habits, new ways of being with our emotions, and not stuffing them down either. And with food, a lot of times we are just simply stuffing the emotion. I mean, it's not even like it works. The emotions don't go away. They just pop back. And then we need more food or more drinks or more cigarettes or whatever the addictive substance is to help to, push down those emotions. So instead, I find that we can, there's really some wonderful tools to just be able to feel your own emotions, be able to experience them, and then release them and let them go. And this then, once we learn to do that, it becomes a positive habit. And one of the things I find that's most helpful in being able to do this successfully is having compassion for yourself. Instead of judgment, instead of judging yourself, judging your body, judging, what perceived failures, realizing that every attempt you've made to heal this addiction or heal these emotions has brought you one step closer to the goal. And I compare emotions a lot to the weather. Weather comes and goes. And that's how our emotions are. They come and they go. But we can identify with a deeper place. You mentioned the spirit earlier, and just really identifying with the spirit, with the soul, with your own essence. And seeing yourself as innocent, as a child, instead of being judgmental towards yourself. And in that way, it's really exciting and empowering when you realize that, hey, I can contain all my emotions, and I can only choose to eat when I'm physically hungry and not for any other reason. And yet, when I am physically hungry, I enjoy every single bite I'm eating. But when my emotions come in, I have other tools to manage them and release them.
And a lot of people then, when they're stuck, they're trying to change their habits. And, when it comes to diets, you have people coming in and they've been on, how many diets, they've been probably in every possible diet, every book that's out there, 10 different diets.
Yeah.
And each one reinforces their inability to stick to a program and also reinforces their failure. How can you shift them from this negative self-talk so that they believe they can succeed?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's important to realize that the mind defaults to the negative. It's almost like gravity. So it's that realization and that awareness one of the chapters in the book is about what voice are you listening to, and it's really noticing, like, is the voice of negativity, is that the voice that's actually driving you, or can that voice sort of go to the back of the bus and start to tune in to the voice of love, the voice of strength, the voice of wisdom, and that voice of that inner guidance, that intuition. Part of the problem with following going from one diet to another is the fact that you do give your power away because you're actually just, blindly following someone else's diet plan. And, and then we see so many differences. I mean, it's almost like obviously opposite ends of the spectrum between something like vegan or raw and then the paleo and the keto, complete opposite. And so how can people on both camps, say, oh my God, this is the only way to eat? Because either plan works really well for some people. So part of the purpose of my program, my book, is to help people to connect to the inner wisdom in themselves, within their own heart, within their own body, mind, and start to really know what is the best eating plan for me. And one of the exercises in the book is creating your personal food map. And I created that exercise to really help people be able to figure out, what do I need to eat? Not just blindly following someone else's plan. And if most people, like you said, have been on every diet, so they've certainly learned a lot, but ultimately, each of us can only create the rules for ourselves. And that then leads us to success. And then we can, instead of listening to that negative voice that you're talking about, that's beating, that may be beating yourself up, instead start to listen to the voice within that's applauding your successes. As if you had a child that came home with their, report card from school, and you'd want to applaud their success or their art project, and start to notice, okay, well, maybe I have only lost 3 pounds, but 3 pounds, imagine 3 sticks of butter or 3 pounds of potatoes, that's pretty good. Or maybe now I'm drinking more water. Or maybe now I've eliminated all soda. So we start to really focus on our successes, and success leads to success.
Beautiful. And something that I really enjoyed reading your book is that you brought in the usage of CBD as a tool to help people to break addictions. So, how did you come about that, and what can you tell the listeners a little bit more about that, and how they can incorporate that to make themselves more successful in achieving their goals?
Yeah, absolutely. CBD, it's become sort of the rage right now. And it's so important to really know, and that's why I included an entire chapter in the book. It's so important to know, how do you know what's good CBD? How do you know where you can get medical grade CBD that's going to actually make a difference? But in researching CBD, it's something that I also just fell into actually about 1.5 years ago. And actually, no, it's almost 2 years ago now at this point. And what had happened was I have glaucoma, and that's what glaucoma is increased pressures in the eye. You don't feel anything. There's absolutely no pain or discomfort. But what happens is slowly you start to lose your vision. And once your vision's lost with glaucoma, because it's actually the optic nerve is dying, you don't ever get that vision back. It's permanent loss. So it was very concerning. And my ophthalmologist was saying to me, that the pressures were really not in control, and that I was probably going to need a surgery or increased medication. And I didn't want either. So actually it was recommended to me to try some CBD. And I was very hesitant because, having had addiction issues in the past, and I had cleaned myself out finally of all substances, and I really was very reluctant to take anything. But then I saw that CBD is non-psychoactive. There's part of the cannabis plant, but it's hemp, and it does not have, it has, if it's full spectrum, it has less than 0.3% THC, which is not enough to create a psychoactive result. However, it is enough to activate the CBD so that it has more of a medicinal value. And when I took the CBD, I started to get all these side benefits. Sleeping better, felt my hormones being regulated, And so then I researched because I wanted to share this information with my clients. And I saw all the misinformation out there on CBD and all of the hype and, actually, I'm sorry to say, but in some cases, out and outright deception. And that's when I decided, to really research the best CBD and how to put it out to people. And so that's, what I included. And CBD, especially when it's mixed with other cannabinoid herbs and blended, can really also work well with weight loss.
That's amazing, yeah, because we need, we have such a addictive society, so to utilize all the different tools that are available, like CBD, and I know in your book also you talk about specific foods that also help to break the addiction, and then also working on the emotions, your emotional connections to food, to event, and then shifting them towards where joy is felt when you're eating healthy, and you can feel that appreciation when you see the outcome, how your body changes and how you're claiming your health, and it's an amazing book, and I really appreciate that it's not a book that is just about a diet, eat this specific way, but it's very focused on the core issues that are underlying the unhealthy patterns. So I really appreciated that in the book.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, it's been such a pleasure, Rena, to have you on the show, and I urge all the listeners to check out her newest book, Easy Sugar Breakup: Break the Habits and Addictions That Control You. Is there another way also that the listeners can connect with you? Is there a website? Is there a program that you have that you think would be really helpful for the listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, Easy Sugar Breakup, I'm really excited about it. It was just released, and it's on Amazon.com. And my website is easy, just EASY, willpower.com.
Wonderful.
So, and there's so much information on easywillpower.com. I mean, videos, articles, and also if someone wants to do online courses, programs, I work with people privately all over the world over the phone and Skype. So it's a great way. Just reach out. There's contact information on easywillpower.com, and I'm really happy to help anyone to break free from addiction. And it really is possible for anyone to be free.
Thank you so much for all your work and for all the information that you so freely give. That is it for today. You're listening to Health Made Radio. Remember to check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it.